Okay. I am Heath Gilbert. I will begin by briefly discussing the drug testing policy and tie it to the book issue. When the district first implemented the random drug testing for students, it stated the goal was to educate parents and students about the dangers of drugs. The newest policy on random drug testing states its purpose is to aid in the discovery and prevention of possible drug-related problems. Many of the challenge books in the CHS library normalize the use of illicit drugs and alcohol. Many of the books promote the use of both in social settings as perfectly normal, safe, and acceptable. They present drugs and alcohol as an acceptable solution for dealing with stress and trauma. Students at CHS are smoking marijuana inside the school walls. Drugs are an issue in Cameron. These books encourage the use of drugs recreationally. Within these books, the readers will see drugs and alcohol being self-prescribed to help children cope with trauma, abuse, and a very long list of other reasons which encourages or justifies their use. These books promote drug use, not prevent. They do not align with the stated goals of the district. The purpose of the school library is to support the curriculum objectives of the school. They are intended to support these objectives and assist in the education of our children. Policy I-120 outlines the curriculum objective on human sexuality. This policy is structured based on Missouri law. Here are some of the many requirements of that policy. Any material and instruction relating to human sexuality will be developmentally appropriate for the student's age and grade. 2, present abstinence as the preferred choice for unmarried people. 3, discuss the possible emotional and psychological consequences of pre-adolescent and adolescent sexual activity. 4, any materials and training relating to sexual abuse will be trauma-informed and developmentally appropriate. Many of the books in the CHS library are in direct conflict with these board-approved curriculum objectives. These books do not support the 4 items that I read to you. I do not accept that any syllabus in the CHS school outlines pre-adolescent sex with one's father. No curriculum includes pointers on how to perform oral sex on a man without using one's teeth. It doesn't provide step-by-step instructions on how 2 boys can have anal sex and ensure it is enjoyable for both. The content of these books does not align with any curriculum objective. Any staff or student who had these types of conversations with others would be guilty of sexual harassment. If the content of these books cannot be read aloud and discussed in the classroom, then they do not align with the curriculum. If they do not align with and complement curriculum objectives, they don't belong in our schools. In a recent opinion from the Federal 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, the judge ruled that Iowa State can remove books from school libraries and classrooms for being sexually explicit and not aligning with the curriculum objective and the pedagogic goals of the state. I would ask the board to discuss this issue here and now. Be transparent. Let the public hear where you stand on this issue. I would ask that you consider changing policy to instruct the book committee to remove books during the reconsideration process that do not align with the curriculum objectives. Prevent books from ever being added which are antithetical to the curriculum objectives. Don't even let them in. It worries me you are more concerned about a lawsuit than the harm these books can cause our kids. The books in our classroom and library should align with the educational objectives for the district instead of serving to undermine them.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, sir.
A question for you, please.
Yes, sir.
Have you yourself physically seen students smoking marijuana in school? Yes or no? Simple question.
You know the answer to that question. I'm not allowed in the building. I've asked and told no.
Thank you.
Would you like to know how we know? Would you like to know?
You answered my question. Thank you.
I'm Dan Landy, a school district resident here tonight to talk about books. First of all, I'd like to pray the Lord's Prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Can Mr. Murphy hear me?
I can.
Okay, thanks. 80 books in 2 years? Not good, folks, not good. Tonight I'm here to talk about a few more books. Here's one called A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's written by Sarah Moss. It's in the high school library. Booklooks.org. Okay, it's a private website, but it's a book review, book rating website. Booklooks.org rates this book a 4 out of 5, and 5 meaning is the most vile. 4 out of 5, and they specifically say this is not for minors, and here's why. This book contains graphic violence, explicit sexual nudity, obscene sexual activities, and mild profanity. Sarah Moss has got 6 books of hers in the there are 6 books that Sarah Moss has written that are currently in the high school library. The next one, Shine, written by Lauren Miracle, I guess if that's how you say her last name. Booklooks rates this a 4 out of 5, again, not for minors, because it contains profanity and derogatory terms, alternate sexualities, pedophilia, sexual activities, including sexual assault, sexual nudity, drug and alcohol use and abuse, and violence. The F word appears 18 times in this book, and there are 8 books total by Lauren Miracle in the high school library. Next up, Identical, written by Ellen Hopkins. Okay, again, Booklooks rates this at 4 out of 5, not for minors, because this book contains explicit sexual activities, including sexual assault and child molestation, violence, including self-harm and suicidal ideations, profanity and derogatory terms, and drug and alcohol abuse. The F word appears 36 times in this one, and there's 10 books by Ellen Hopkins in your high school library. Okay, folks, we've been through this before. I've got some questions. I know these are rhetorical. I know you're not going to answer me because you're there to listen. I'm here to vent, but just please hear me out. Okay, question number 1. How do these books support the curriculum? Your policy says they're supposed to. I would like to know how. Number 2, what literary value do these books have? What do they offer? What do you want a child to learn from these books? Number 3, why are students prohibited from reading these books on school computers, but are permitted to read them in the library? Number 4, while at school, why are students prohibited from saying or doing the things that they read in these books?
Good point.
Number 5, why won't you let parents into the library to inspect books? We've asked 100 times. We've got emails, and we've got denials. And you expect parents to sign a form saying that they opt their kid out of reading, restricted to certain books from their child. But how is a parent supposed to know what's in your library if you won't let the parent in there to take a look at the books? Again, number 6, why won't the book review committee explain the review process to the parents? It's about transparency, folks, or lack thereof. Number 7, why does the book review committee meet and vote in secret? We need some transparency if you want trust in the community. Number 8, why did the librarians choose these books for their libraries? That's a question I've had since day one. How did they get in here? They didn't just magically appear. Someone selected these books. I'd like to know who, and I'd like to know why. Number 9, why did the school buy these books? Okay, so a librarian sends you a list of nasty books. Doesn't mean you have to buy them. Why do you buy them? Why? They shouldn't even be here. We wouldn't be talking about these nasty books before you hadn't bought them. Number 10, do you personally approve of these books? Now I know you won't tell me publicly, you darn sure won't tell me privately. I mean, that's fine. It's rhetorical. I wouldn't expect you to, right? We're all good Christians here. I wouldn't expect anyone here to approve of these, letting their kids or grandkids read these books. And finally, number 12, do you think Jesus approves of these books? I don't.
My name is Paula Allen. You've shared your outline, and I would like to share mine. On March 10th, 2023, I sent an email, and this is just a small excerpt from that email. Please advise me as to where I might locate the policy regarding classroom libraries, as well as how I would be able to access the books in each classroom in each school in our district. Didn't hear anything. So on June 28th of 2024, I emailed. Please consider this an official sunshine law request. I am asking that accommodations be made for a group of concerned patrons to be allowed to view the books in the classroom libraries. Summer school is done, so we have the rest of the summer to get it completed before the new school year begins. Then I sent a correction. Please consider this as a correction to my original request for concerned patrons to view and inspect the books in teachers' classroom libraries. A sunshine law request is not needed or necessary to review those books since they are instructional material. On July 3rd, I received a email response back from Mrs. Pam Ice, and this is just again a portion of it because I'm just allotted a certain amount of time this evening. It is not the practice of the district to permit members of the general public into individual classrooms or for any purpose, including to access and review teachers' classroom library books. It would be disruptive to the operations of the district and a violation of a teacher's personal classroom space to permit such a practice. The district will provide you in response to a corresponding future request with list of library materials for each classroom. However, it is my understanding that those lists may not be yet complete, as it was only a recent consideration by administration for each teacher to create such a list. Thank you, Pam Ice. According to statute 170.231, all public school instructional materials shall be available for inspection by any person. You might review your policies because you amended one that you're in violation of the law. You changed it to say to be reviewed by a parent. Teachers read aloud to students using books directly from their classroom libraries, making them instructional material. That shall be available for inspection by any person. Additionally, when students are instructed to read independently from their library book that they checked out from the public school district's library, those books are also instructional material. That shall be made available for inspection by any person. If the student forgot their library book at home, they are then instructed to borrow one from their teacher's classroom library to read, which again makes them instructional material. That shall be made available for inspection by any person. I am struggling with why the district is not choosing to follow the law, as well as the new policies that you all voted and adopted with a unanimous approval. If there isn't anything to hide, why not simply make the instructional material available for inspection by any person, as the law clearly states? Please help me to understand how the tax-paying patrons of the district are to feel in terms of transparency from the district as well as the school board. On Ed Council Insights, episode number 46, which is your council, it advises that regardless of the law, you might want to look at sexually explicit materials and ask if something is appropriate regardless of biases. The Board of Education can make the decision to remove or restrict books. It also outlines the fact that library books, including classroom libraries that are on the shelves, are in fact instructional material and are to be made available to review. And I have requested that over a year and a half ago at this point, so I would appreciate some cooperation, and I am more than willing to volunteer to pull those books at whatever is convenient for you, before school, after school, with the teachers, whatever that looks like. I have volunteered in many capacities as a member of Parents' Teachers Association. So I'm in your Raptor system. I can go through a criminal background check, FBI check, whatever you need. I can do that to ensure that, you know, I'm not going to do anything. And books can be pulled and provided for review at whatever location you deem appropriate, but it is instructional material. So again, I would like to respectfully make that request. I would like unity for our community, and I do live in this community, And even though my children no longer go to school in this district, they still live here as well. And they have friends that attend school here. Thank you.
Ms. Allen, have you received the most recent email from the district where I think the custodian of records responded to you and asked if you'd like for us to figure out the cost for us to pull the books out of each classroom? Would you like for us to figure that out, the cost for you?
Well, I guess I'm confused because it's not a sunshine law request, so there shouldn't be a cost associated with reviewing materials. You're not compiling anything.
So
You're not creating a document.
170, I can't remember the statute, 170 does not override the sunshine law. It works in conjunction with the sunshine law. So anytime you request records, the sunshine law still says, because that's going to take time from our staff and individuals to pull those. So the sunshine law still applies to provide the information to you. So I think the last correspondence we had sent to you is asking you if you would like for us to figure out the cost. I think, I don't know, we probably have between 100 and 150 classrooms in the district, and we can work on that. You just let us, we will work on figuring that up for you, and then we'll methodically set up a process where we'll pull the start in the classroom. But you just let us know. I think Ms. Walker, this custodian of records, has, so if you'll respond to that email, I know my email with you has been incorrect a couple different times, and we get it corrected, and then sometimes the S gets dropped off, and so then I don't get emails always from you right away. So go back and look at that email.
In your email, you had mentioned how the teachers are busy, and I certainly agree. I mean, I have friends in the district that are teachers, and I greatly respect the amount of time that they put in, because if you actually extrapolate it out, they're getting paid less than minimum wage for all the hours that the teachers put in, so I greatly respect that. So that's why I'm willing to volunteer to help pull those books, because I don't want to pull teachers or staff away from teaching the kids and being there for the kids. And my time, it's voluntarily. I'm not on your payroll. It's free. And I have been in the district in many capacities to help with book fairs, picture day, field trips, all kinds of things.
That's not quite how the sunshine law works. So we have to have an individual of the district pull that record representing the district. So if you'll just respond to the custodian of records email, then we can process that forward.
Please give me an estimate.
Ms. Ice, the law also says that you can waive those charges, the district can waive those charges if it chooses.
Amen.
So for the sake of transparency, why don't you choose to do that for us?
And I have paid over $200 already for curriculum that I had requested that was actually in digital form that one of your district staff had already sent to me before your custodian of records had sent it. So it obviously didn't take as much time to compile. So I do want to estimate, but like I said, I've already expended a sufficient amount of funds.
It will take some time to go through each classroom and pull their classroom libraries, and we'll box those up. We'll bring them to a neutral location so class can continue, and or we can try to come up with an easier resolution. We've maybe taken pictures of the collections of the books in the classroom. Maybe that would be another option where we could take pictures of the collections and provide those pictures so you can see the titles and the authors, and that way you can review the information that way. But if we have to physically pack up we have teachers that might have over several hundred books to 1,000 books in their
Right, and I
classroom.
understand. That's why I made my request a year and a half ago, so we could have.
And I'm sorry, I did not receive that, so.
A year and a half is a long time.
Yeah, I did not receive that back then, so. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Heath Gilbert. That has been my name for 21 years. You will never find a stronger advocate, a louder cheerleader, and a greater support than I have for my husband. I have for many years called my husband a hammer, because that's how he addresses issues. And to a hammer, every issue is a nail. To my husband, this issue is a nail. He will continue to pound on this nail until there is some resolution. I would like to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I want to thank Dr. Robinson for accommodating my busy schedule in order for us to meet. Over past year or maybe longer, parents and members of the community has come to school board meetings to talk at you about this book issue. That is not my intention tonight. My goal or my intention is to open the dialogue, hopefully. I grew up in the projects of Chicago, and in those formative years, reading was my escape from the world around me. I am an avid reader. I read about the adventures of Anne Shirley, Anne with an E, and Diana Barry and Gilbert Blythe in the Anne of Green Gables series. I imagine myself in the room when Diana Barry drank too much of Marilla's famous cordial. I read about the adventures of the brothers Frank and Joe Hardy and Nancy Drew in the Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mysteries. I imagine myself part of their investigative team, solving mysteries right alongside them. And Judy Blume was so much fun to read. I really enjoyed reading Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing. But I have to admit, one of my favorite books by her is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And I'm sure a number of you in this room can relate to a young girl on the precipice of puberty. There are so many books that I can name that I've enjoyed reading as a child growing up, and I continue to read. Books like the entire Chronicles of Narnia series or The Little Princess. One of my most favorite things to do, which I'm sure some of you can relate, was laying on the living room floor with my grandmother in a Sunday comics and My Little Egg of Silly Putty. Which each of these books, including the Sunday comics, lacked was someone who looked like me. You will not find a stronger advocate for diversity in literature and inclusion in literature. Well, this one book, The Little Princess, I enjoyed reading that book, but there was only one character that looked like me, but she was ill-treated, unloved, and uncared for until Sarah came along. The reason I'm standing before you is to express not just my words, but my deep understanding of the importance of representation in literature. This is something I understand more than most people in this room understand. Most of you can pick up a book and see yourselves in the pages. There's not a lot of people out there that can say that. I believe there should be uplifting books written about boys and girls from every walks of life. Be that gay, lesbian, white, black, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Books where the protagonist and antagonist represents all of us as a community. However, I also strongly believe that the material doesn't have to be sexually explicit. There can be uplifting books full of diversity, inclusion, and inclusive content, but the content doesn't have to be reprehensible. I would not want my daughter to read some of the stuff that's in these books. Some may argue that these books are life-saving. As an adult survivor of childhood trauma, I can assure you, these books, this material don't save lives. It re-traumatizes.
That's right.
Mr. Landy stole some of my thunder about allowing parents into the library to read the books. As I spoke with Dr. Robinson, I understand that task is daunting, but something must be done. I'm not standing before you saying that I have the answers, but we as a community need to work together to make a change, make a difference, do the right thing for our children.
A couple points I want the parents and community members to know that the books in the library are on the Destiny system. So you can go out on the website and get on the Destiny system and see the entire collection. So that will give the title and the author and a little bit of a synopsis of the book without having to go physically into the library. So I want to make that point. I also want to encourage you, if you want to know the board's stance, go read I-181P. The board included Missouri law as well as added definitions last December. So, and then you can go compare that policy with the minutes of that meeting, and you can compare how the board voted, and you'll know the stance of the board when it comes to the content and the direction that we gave to the administration. So I just want to remind you, that's how the board speaks, by motions and directives in the boardroom. So just want to remind you that. The 3 books that were listed from my quick glance, I believe have been restricted, and so they will not be accessible to the student body unless parents grant permission to those books. That was my quick glance, so please don't hold me to that. But you can go on the Destiny site and look at the books that were mentioned tonight. You'll be able to see that parent approval is needed on the books that were mentioned here. So I think the administration has reviewed those books. And I think that's all I had in response to that. I appreciate the 4 of you coming and speaking to us, and we'll move on to the next section. The next part of communication is items for consideration. And so I think we had 3 individuals sign up before the meeting that they would like to come and speak about items for consideration on the agenda. So once again, introduce yourself, and then let us know which items you would like to speak about.
I am Heath the Hammer, and I'm here to talk about curriculum. Last night, I spent a fair bit of time going over the curriculum material that was shared for tonight's meeting. There are a lot of good curriculum objectives there. I recognize a lot of time and effort put into those documents. As hard as I looked, nowhere in the objectives could I find anything remotely relating to the content in more than 100 books which have been challenged for the inappropriate adult content they contain. Pam, the author of the article in the Federalist, asked you a specific question that you declined twice to answer. As a taxpayer of the community, I would like to expand on her question as it pertains to the curriculum. Considering there are no curriculum objectives specifically about graphic descriptions of anal sex, why is the district expending taxpayer resources to buy books which do not further the curriculum objective of the schools? Are there secret curriculum objectives that are not being shared with the parents in the community? Perhaps those selecting the books have a secret curriculum. That would explain a lot of this mess. Other surrounding schools do not have the same issue with the sexually explicit books. Why is it such a problem in our high school? If these other schools can meet similar curriculum objectives without over-the-top sexually explicit adult content, what exactly is different about our curriculum which requires that type of material? Clearly, other schools can meet their diverse student body curriculum objectives without these books. Has anyone asked how they meet their diverse needs without the filth? Does the school district have a plan on meeting curriculum objectives without additional explicit adult content? It has been 19 months since the issue came to light. How is it that the parents in the community still do not know how and why, the how and why, behind the curricular needs of these books? Why do we not know where the district stands on these topics? How about a discussion here now? Let's hear where you stand, individually. How do these books further the education and curricular goals of the district? Do you want me to give the book issue a rest? Help me to understand why these books are necessary. What curricular goals do these books meet? Someone, please ask Mr. Robinson to explain that for us all here tonight. We'd all love to know. It's past time for transparency.
Go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Okay, is he waiting on me? Oh, excuse me. Dan Landy, Cameron, school district resident. Thank you. Okay. 80 books in 2 years. Folks, I said it before, I'll say it again, that's not good. Mrs. Ice, you dutifully read the vision statement and the mission statements at every board meeting. Okay, I want to know how smut books, okay, dirty, vulgar books, and I think we can agree on some of this, how these books, as you said, offer an exceptional educational experience to our children. I'm having trouble connecting those dots. And I want to know how these dirty books educate and empower the students. I mean, what are we trying to educate them on? You know, fornication? I mean, really? Drug use? I mean, folks, I don't hate you. I just hate what you're doing.
Item of consideration is this following.
This is a curriculum. These books are supposed to follow the curriculum.
Yes, I was just curious.
Oh, well, see, asking thou shalt receive, I'm telling you. Okay, Pam, Mrs. Ice, you mentioned to go to Destiny and get a synopsis of the book. I did, it's on my phone, right? The dirty book that I read from, Shine, okay, Lauren Miracle. The one that's rated 4 out of 5, not for minors, because it's got profanity, derogatory terms, alternate sexualities, pedophilia, sexual activities, including sexual assault, sexual nudity, drug and alcohol use and abuse and violence. Okay, this book, according to book looks, right, says it's 4 out of 5. Destiny says about this book, when her best friend falls victim to a vicious hate crime, 16-year-old Kat sets out to discover the culprits in her small North Carolina town. The end. That's all it says. So a parent will have no idea the content of this book by going to Destiny and looking on your website. How are parents supposed to know? You won't let us in the library. You won't let any light shine in the library or in the school, in the classrooms whatsoever. You won't. And that's the problem. And that's why we're upset. And that's why we've been hammering and bludgeoning all these months. Folks, I'm telling you, this is, look, trying to be respectful, okay? Put yourself in our shoes. And I know it's hard for you to do, I understand that. But your parents and your grandparents, put yourself in our shoes, okay? Would you want your kid reading this? Your grandkid reading this? I would venture to say no, because you're decent people. So then do the decent thing. It's not that hard. The law allows you to. Mr. Gilbert, explain that. Okay, federal law allows you to do that. You're the board. You make the decisions here. Make the right decision, please.
Paula Allen, addressing curriculum. Part of this is a recap from what I stated earlier because I didn't want anybody to miss where I was going with this. Like I said, I was advised by Mrs. Ice on July 3rd that patrons would not be allowed to review books in the classroom libraries in the Human R1 district. This violates the law. Furthermore, the board recently voted to restrict who is allowed to view curriculum to parents only, which of course that would put me out of being able to review it. But the law actually states that you can be in-state, out-of-state, in-district, out-of-district. Again, Ed Council Insights episode 39. The policy you guys rescinded and the new policy you adopted, that's this policy. So you might want to familiarize yourself with that because that's where I got it from. So you can watch that podcast and check those facts for yourself. Because, like I said, I've been asking since March 10th of 2023, and Mrs. Ice, I respect that you weren't aware of that, but others sitting here were. And I can forward that email to you so you can see the names on them. I was previously allowed to review books that were at Parkview when I had a child in that district, and I appreciated those accommodations. So we've kind of taken a step back because now it's, and I wasn't charged to review those books. So, the books, like I said in the email, that I didn't get into details earlier, I suggested they could be placed in boxes, labeled with the building grade teachers' names. The books could be reviewed in a specific room within each building, the PAC or the district office. It could be done starting with the high school with a certain number of classrooms at a time. This could have been done if the original request from March of 23 had been accommodated. I'd be willing to go to various businesses, collect the boxes, drop them off at each school. That would be helpful. Advise me what else I can do to help, and I would do my best to accommodate that. The book Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, that is part of the restricted, age restricted by 18, which in the letter you mentioned, it was in the classroom of a teacher during back to school night. Could that teacher or any of you guarantee that there were no students in there under the age of 18 that had access to that book since it was in the back of the classroom? Because my kids are 10 years apart in age, one of which is 18, and we do things as a family. So when we would go to that back to school night, we're all there. So this book was in the classroom in direct defiance to the age restriction of 18 being placed on it. Those books are supposed to be in a restricted area. Clearly they weren't. How could that teacher guarantee that anyone under that age was not there? For a while, there's been suspicion that some of the books that are made available in the library that is in each building in the district might also be made available in the classrooms. That suspicion has been realized. It has been brought to light that that is fact, reality, and no longer suspicion. I thank you for your time. As I said, I had a child in this district. She came home and reported about the marijuana being smoked in the bathroom.
Mrs. Allen,
Yes, ma'am.
quick question. You mentioned that you have reviewed books at Parkview. How many good books did you review and how long did it take you?
I believe at that time I requested 7, and I was allowed to, I wasn't told, you know, that's too many, that's too little. That's all I requested at that time. I think I was there for a couple of hours because I did read every single word of every single page of all 7 of those books.
And that
And
was
took
at
notes
Parkview?
and took pictures, yes. So, but now I'm just a patron, not a parent of the district. But I pay my taxes, that you guys get.
Any other questions on the comments?